Hello everybody, this is Mr. Bowen. Today we're going to be looking at the ALEKS topic, finding the final amount in a word problem on compound interest. So this is a specific application of those exponential functions. So it's similar to exponential growth in a way, because we should be increasing the amount of money we have if we have compound interest. No one's going to invest in something if they're guaranteed to lose money, which would be decay. So it has a couple things that are a little bit different because the time periods sometimes change. So, if it was just every year automatically or annually, it'd be exactly the same as a growth model. But since it has slightly different time periods, it changes slightly. So our typical growth one looks like this, right? Okay. For it, that's just regular growth. Or regular exponential growth. For compound interest, we have to have another variable in there to represent that time period. So we change a couple of the letters as well. So we're calling it A equals P instead of Y and A and P times 1 plus R over N raised to the NT. So we're adding this N in there just so we can represent that time periods. But B is normally, if it's growth, it's 1 plus R. We put B because we, in general, if we don't know it's growth or decay, we can put that for both of them. But remember, when you find this amount here, it's 1 plus the rate. That's what 1 plus R is. We just have an extra N here in two places to represent how often the compounding occurs. But it is very similar. It looks weird, but the process is almost the same. So this is the amount, which is what I'm going to be looking for, find the total amount, so I don't know that. And P stands for principal. That's how much money you start with so how much you invested from the very beginning. So that's our initial population of money. So we have $2,000 invested right now. Fill in some of these other parts. 1 plus, and then my R is your rate. Remember, we do need it as a decimal. That doesn't change the way we do that, so we get 0.043 divided by N, which is the period that we're using, which would be whatever unit. In this case, it is years, so it's semi-annual. So semi means we're using half, so it's every 6 months or half a year. So with this one, it's the number of interest per year. So we're going to divide this by 2 because semi-annual means it's going to happen twice a year. And then this will be raised to the 2t power. Since that n is 2, we're just going to put that up there, and then it's still just t. Okay, so that is our formula. And then we're specifically in this one looking at the amount after 8 years. So I just plug in 8 for t and try and clean this up. And it takes a little bit of work. Feel free to use whatever calculator you're most comfortable with to help you with this. But we have 0.043 over 2. And right now I'm just doing 2 times 8. So that'll be 16 up in my exponent spot. Okay. So one of the things I do recommend people do is don't put this straight in your calculator, just because it requires a lot of careful use of parentheses and such. With the exception of if you can actually type and see this whole thing, you can go for it. But if you're doing it on more like the TI-30 styles where you can only see little bits at a time, it's really easy to make a mistake. So I don't recommend trying to put it all in at once if you're using that type of calculator. Okay. All right, so I'll leave this 16. I want to figure this out. So I have 0.043 divided by 2, and then plus 1, and that gives me 1.0215 to the 16th. So now I want to take that and use my exponent before I multiply. So this to the 16th power. which is going to be a very, very long decimal. So don't clear your calculator after you put it in, because that's going to be rounding, and it even warned you up here, do not round in the middle of your computations. So I'm going to write out a rounded number, but I'm going to leave it on my calculator itself so that I'm not rounding. So when I'm just going to keep that long decimal on my calculator and just hit times 2,000. Okay. So my amount here, rounded to the nearest cent, is $2,810, and the nearest cent would be 89 cents. Okay. So that's what I'm getting here. And it didn't ask me. Sometimes it asks you what the interest was as opposed to just the amount, and that would just mean find this and subtract off your original 2,000. So my final amount here is $2,810.89. The amount of interest accrued, we just take the 2,000 that I invested back out. So because I invested it 8 years ago, I would have made $810.89 just by leaving it in that account.